Good afternoon, everyone. As everyone is coming into the virtual open day webinar, we're just going to wait a couple more minutes for all the attendees to get into the room, and I will then start. So we'll just wait a couple more minutes. So just give it another couple of minutes. I'll just check the waiting room. Okay, I think I will be starting. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Maria Mileva, and I'm speaking to you today as head of the MA History of Art program here at the Courtauld Institute of Art. And I will be talking to you about our MA History of Art program. And I'm also joined today by Alex Hawkins, who is head of admissions, and he will be speaking after me. So I'll speak for about 30 minutes, up to 30 minutes. Don't worry, it's not going to be too long, and I will try to keep it relatively light, but also informative. And then Alex will be telling you about the admissions process. And then we will leave about 10 to 15 minutes for questions. And I would like to remind you that the session is being recorded. It is a webinar. So the way to ask your questions is to write them in the chat, and I will be checking the chat. Towards the end of the session, I will read out your questions, and then Alex and I will address those questions together. So just stick any question into the chat room in the chat, and we will be checking that later. So I will begin, and also just to say that my colleague Shika Shah, who is the marketing manager, is assisting us today. Thank you, Shika, and she's going to be running through the slides, and I'll be telling her to move on. So without further ado, the Courtauld Institute of Art is a fantastic place to study art history. And first of all, you will be you will be joining us in London. So the Courtauld Institute of Art is located across two campuses. You see two photos here on the slide. The one on the left is Somerset House. It is located right in the center of the city, across Waterloo Station, right on the River Thames, and is really kind of the hub of many cultural activities. And that is where there is the Courtauld Gallery, but also our conservation department is located there. And it also is located just next door to King's College London. The second campus is Vernon Square, and that is just next door to King's Cross, another very vibrant part of London. For those of you who are not from London or from UK, and I imagine that for the virtual open day, we have several people joining from further afield and from abroad. And these are the two campuses, and we teach across the two campuses. I would say that for the History of Art program, it is primarily in Vernon Square, which is the photo of the building on the right. And the teaching is done in lecture theatres as well as seminars, but also in the Courtauld Gallery itself, but also in different museums and galleries of London, as well as trips that are further afield. And I'll tell you about that a little bit more later. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So why the Courtauld, I will say, is as well as the Institute, which is the Courtauld was founded in 1932 as UK's first institution devoted to the study of art, and soon in 2032 we will be celebrating our centenary, and we're really excited about that. But the Courtauld has reformed greatly since 1932, and it has become one of the kind of the best institution for the study of history of art around the world. Specifically, I would say for the postgraduate program, because of the breadth and wealth of specialist options that are on offer, as well as our faculty that are teaching here. But we also make the most of the Courtauld Gallery and the study rooms that are located in the Courtauld Gallery. The Courtauld Gallery is in Somerset House, as I said already. It is renowned for its collection of Impressionist and Post-Impressionist works of art. But its collection stretches from the early Renaissance to the 20th century and beyond. And it also has fantastic program of temporary exhibitions. So, for example, right now there is an exhibition um, which is called Monet in London, Views of the Thames, and it's a sold out exhibition. It will close only in January, but it is sold out already. It's kind of been sold out right from as it opened. And it is has been kind of 5-star rated by all of the critical press, both in UK and abroad. And we really are able to make the most of the gallery spaces by teaching not only inside the gallery, and you'll have access to the gallery spaces as Courtauld students, but we also conduct teaching in two spaces, which are the Prints and Drawing Study Room and the Object Study Room, which offer the opportunity to study the work closely with the collection of 7,000 drawings and 27,000 prints that range from the Middle Ages to 20th century. And something else to add, there is an opportunity for our students, both undergraduate and postgraduate students, to take part in kind of training by the education department here at the Courtauld to conduct short tours in the gallery. So you can do a lunchtime talks program where you would be able to, first of all, receive training in semester 1 when you sign up for this program. And then you can do a lunchtime talk in the gallery to the public of a work of your choice, really. And that is really, really fantastic opportunity. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So what is the Courtauld? And I've already talked a little bit about the history of the Courtauld, about the Courtauld Gallery, but also the Institute. So the Courtauld Institute of Art is an independent college of the University of London. So you will be awarded with a degree from the University of London when you graduate here with a master's degree. if you come here to study with us. You will be joining a cohort of around 650 students that are in both BA level, MA level, and also PhD. There are more than 40 permanent faculty members here who are my colleagues, with unparalleled breadth of art historical teaching specialisms and increasingly global in its outlook. And just to say that, as well as my own role as head of MA in History of Art, I'm also a lecturer in modern and contemporary art. My own specialism is in Soviet and post-Soviet art. And I, for example, offer one of the special options here. And I will be also teaching at MA level, and I will be able to talk about that a little bit later. So by coming to the Courtauld, you also have access not only to the Courtauld Gallery, but an absolute stellar selections of museum collections, galleries, and libraries. There is the British Library, the National Art Library, but also you have access to the Senate House Library as a University of London student. As well as that, I would also like to highlight that we've received kind of world leading ranking in the National Research Excellence Framework. So in terms of the rating of our teaching and research. And the Courtauld is also ranked as one of the top 4 universities worldwide for the study of history of art, so in terms of its international reputation. If we can go to the next slide, please. So something else at the Courtauld, which I'd like to highlight, is the research forum. So as well as having your seminars and teaching in galleries and doing a study trip, you can also attend the multiple events at the Research Forum. And there are around 150 research events each year, which are put on by our public program Research Forum. Students can get involved as well in the both closed workshops, but also by attending seminars, lectures, as well as conferences. So for example, at the start of this semester, I co-organized a conference on a modernist art in Ukraine, which was a 2-day fantastic event, and it went really well. And also, I would say that our events are recorded online, so you can go to the Research Forum, the Courtauld YouTube, and you can kind of just have a look at the range of events that are available and get a sense of what it might be like to attend one of those events by watching it. There's also student societies, which are run and supported by the Courtauld Student Union. If we can move on, please. So another great highlight is by joining the Courtauld Institute of Art, you're also joining King's College London through our strategic partnership with KCL. That is located also in Somerset House, next to Somerset House. Our institutions collaborate on teaching, research, and the student experience, offering joint programs and research. So that's there are kind of more at undergraduate level, and there is also a specific MA program which is called Contemporary Art and the Moving Image, which is called run with King's. And there is a separate virtual open day for that program that I encourage you to attend if you're interested in that. But also one of the, I think, really great things about this partnership with King's is that you will have access to all of the King's facilities, including the cafes, the medical services, libraries, clubs and societies, sports teams, if you want to join the football team or any of the other societies, you can do that both here and at King's. So next slide, please. So I've already mentioned the CAMI course, which is the Contemporary Art and the Moving Image course, which is run together with KCL, with King's College London. But I've included a list here of our other postgraduate taught programs at the Courtauld. So I'm talking today about the History of Art program, but we also have programs in curating, in art history and conservation of Buddhist heritage, in art and business, as well as the graduate diploma in the history of art. And I'm including this here is because you can apply for 2 programs at the same time. And Alex Hawkins will be talking a little bit more about this later. So if we can go to the next slide. So MA History of Art. So when you apply to study MA in History of Art at the Courtauld, you're applying for an MA in a specialist subject, and it is a 9-month program. The 9-month program is split into 2 semesters, so the autumn semester and the spring semester. The semester runs over 12 weeks, and there is a reading week in the middle. And so in the second semester, which starts in January, it will go through right up to Easter, and then there will be an Easter break. And week 12 is actually the week after Easter. And then there is the assessment period, which is dedicated really to independent research and writing, where you'll be working on your dissertation, which will be submitted in late May, and graduation happens in July. So you are going to be, when you apply to study history of art, you will be applying for special option. So either you select a special option, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, or you apply for the general history of art program, where based on your interests that you will talk about in your personal statement, as well as picking particular fields of study that you're interested on, we will be able to allocate you to a particular special option for consideration. And when you study the special option over 2 semesters, and the special option is normally taught in groups of 10 to 12 students, there are over approximately 25 special options for you to pick from, and these will be on the websites for you to really peruse, read in detail, and consider what you're most interested in. But they are wide in their range across media, periods, and geographies. And our intake for the MA History of Art program is around 250 students. So it's kind of around 10 to 12 students of about 25 special options, to kind of give you an idea. And if we go to the next slide, Shika. So the teaching structure. So the teaching is offered through a kind of a range of modules and also formats of teaching. As I said already, the special option is offered taught across 2 semesters. Then there are a number of other modules that you will take. There is a module called Critical Debates, and it is taught in a group with other special option groups in the autumn semester, alongside other taught postgraduate programs such as the MA Curating program and MA Contemporary Art and the Moving Image. And the reason I'm pointing this out as well is you will really get to know your special option cohort of 10 to 12 students. But doing these are all compulsory modules. Doing the other modules that are taught in groups, probably of about 5 to probably like 5 special options together, you will get to mix and meet other students within the cohort, because one of the other, I would say, greatest strength of our program is not only the specialist knowledge that you receive, but also the friends that you make here at the Courtauld. You really do form a really close network of friends and contacts as you go on to your to develop your career after the study here. So the virtual exhibition is a module that you take in the spring semester. and it focuses on questions of display, curation, and exhibition. And it leads up to an assessment, which will be a virtual exhibition that you will be putting together. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And then there is the dissertation and research skills module, which runs across both semesters. And it is taught in a range of classes and workshops and one-to-one tutorials with your special option tutor, with a lecturer, that helps you to develop your skills to write a 10,000 word dissertation. Shika, could we go to the next slide, please? So this is really the modules that I outlined prepare you for these assessments, which all come up to the result that you will receive in the end. So you will write two 4,000 word special option essays submitted in the autumn and spring. So the current MA cohort submitted their first special option essay last week. And they're already starting to think about this. A second special option essay, which is due in the end of January. So everything happens quite quickly, and that's why it is a 9-month, very intense, I would say, taught program, where you will be preparing a range you'll be kind of following a range of modules, but also working on your writing skills. Then there is a critical debates portfolio, which is attached to the critical debates module that is submitted in the autumn with a shorter written exercise, which will be assessed. And the virtual exhibition assignment submitted in the spring. And I would say this is one of my favorites, both in terms of teaching it and reading the submissions from students, where you are able to curate an exhibition in a space of your choice. It can be a virtual space, it could be on kind of a web exhibition, or it could be in the Courtauld Gallery, because it will be something that you are proposing. You will write a proposal. You will also prepare a list of about 30 works of art that you will have to put together with a concept of why those works, you want to exhibit these works, why now, what kind of public will come and see your work. And then you will write an wall text, an exhibition label, and an entry for an exhibition catalogue, which will also give you these transferable skills depending on what you want to do after your MA. And the kind of culmination of the assessment and of your year here at the Courtauld will be the 10,000 word dissertation, which will be submitted in May. And these are often publishable works. You really get to develop something that is kind of article length of a peer review journal type of work. We really prepare you for this level of academic writing at postgraduate level. And it's really fun as well, I would say. Can we go to the next slide? So yes, these are the range of special options for next year that you can choose from. So you can see, I'm not going to read them all out, but this is really for you to do your exploring in your own time, because there's quite a bit of information. I'll flag the one that I'm teaching so that you know which one it is. And it's called Culture Wars, Art and Socialism since 1917. And I'm actually co-teaching that special option with two other colleagues, Dr. Winnie Teo and Dr. Clara Kemp Welsh. And in the first semester, it will be in effect like 3 groups together, where we'll be really thinking of a more kind of thematic, methodological, bigger questions that relate to art and socialism since 1917, discussions of art and politics. And then you will split into 3 specialist groups, one that looks at the former Soviet Union, one that looks at contemporary Chinese art, and then one that looks at Eastern Europe with my colleague. And there is only one other option, which is also co-taught in this kind of a group level, and that's the one that is the Renaissance one, which I think was the next slide, actually, Shika. It's oh no, it's here it is. It's body and experience in Renaissance art. Yes. which is with Felix Jäger, Dr. Robert Brennan, and Professor Guido Repicchini. So please look through these special options, and I can also answer some questions at their end. So there's a couple more slides that I just want to talk about of life after the Courtauld, of kind of what you will be graduating with. So as well as having being kind of a specialist art historian, having completed a special option in a particular area of art history, there are also many transferable skills, and I'm not going to read them out here, but I would say the emphasis is on really high quality writing, but also oral presentation, so communication skills around also being able to think critically around visual imagery, which is very key, independent research, and so on. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. And so this is a range of graduate careers. So as well as careers in the art world, many of our students go on to develop career either in journalism, for example, or marketing, business, legal profession, publishing, and so on. And to help you do that as well, if you go to the next slide, we have a careers service, which is an incredible opportunity. So you can have one-to-one appointments with a careers professional, as well as practice interviews. We can work on your CV, also a range of online resources and so on. And there are also alumni insight sessions that happen very often. And I think they might even be on YouTube for you to kind of get a look at. And if you go to the next slide, just to also highlight our alumni network. So you will be graduating and becoming part of a very, I would say, kind of close Courtauld family, quote unquote. So our Courtauld students, the alumni network is really wide, and they organize events in many across. Well, first of all, I just checked there are 82 countries that our alumni are located in, and where they're from. And you become kind of part of this alumni network, and the alumni network organizes professional opportunities. There is an exclusive online jobs board, monthly alumni newsletter, and career support. And for those of you who are already students at the Courtauld for your undergraduate degree, for example, you also receive a 10% discount either for the MA taught degrees, but if you have finished the MA and you want to continue and perhaps apply for the PhD program here, you also get a 10% discount, which is a great highlight, I would say. And yes, so this is the end of me. I spoke for 29 minutes. I'll pass over to Alex, and I'm glad I was in time. And I will be monitoring questions, so please do add your questions to the chat. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So we've heard about why you might consider applying for the Courtauld and the various kind of academic and extracurricular things that we can offer. Let's talk about how to actually get you here and what your application looks like and the process for that. So if we go to my first slide, the first thing always is the kind of key dates and how we find ourselves in the cycle at the moment. So applications launched a few weeks ago, and the deadline for kind of equal consideration for the program is on the 20th of January. That's not the kind of final deadline, but it's the deadline I'd recommend everyone who is attending this kind of think about getting everything in ahead of that deadline so your references come through. And that's the date that you'll want to apply for. So to give yourself the best opportunity of being considered for the programme and also for scholarship funding, which I'll touch upon a bit later. Just a quick note that you can apply to up to 2 separate programmes. So you might be considering the History of Art programme, but if you want to apply to one other programme as well, you may, and that's all within the same application portal. So our entry requirements for the home students, you'll be looking to have achieved a good 2-1. We kind of think of that as around a 65% in your BA. We do welcome applicants of other forms of academic and relevant professional experience as well. And if you have any questions about that, if you can't ever you have an idea of, how that might fit in, you can contact my team. We'll talk you through that and how to present that. For overseas qualifications, it's an equivalent to a good 2-1. So, for example, if you're applying from the USA, that would be a cumulative GPA of about 3.5, around there. My team, again, are very happy to talk you through if you send us an email to the PG admissions address, which we'll share at the end. We can go through any qualifications you might have. So the application comprises some kind of key elements that you'll really need to focus on and that we assess and my academic colleagues look at in great detail. The first part of that is the personal statement. So you'll have, no matter how many programs you apply for, a 300-word kind of personal element of that statement, a personal statement, if you will, which kind of allows you to look at why you might want to study at the Courtauld, any relevant study projects, work experience you might have, your key skills, what makes you as an individual candidate stand out, and perhaps your career aspirations. And that first 300-word section is really about you and kind of the general kind of applicant that you are, and that's kind of how I would frame it. If you're just applying for the MA History of Art, for instance, then you would also have a subsequent 300-word section, which is more focused. So it offers you the opportunity to explain your interest in relevant skills for the option that you might want to consider. I would pitch it that you can certainly focus on one option, but it's not a bad idea to have a little bit of a general sense of it, because some of the options are very competitive. It is likely that you might be considered for other options and indeed other programs as well as part of the postgraduate application process that we have now. So certainly not a bad idea to have some focus in there, but do have a broad sense of that too. And it's that's the section where you can kind of get into skills that are more direct to the program, kind of academic learning skills, but also anything that you've seen or written about that's kind of directly relevant to your study interests. We go to the next section, which is the written work sample. So we ask that you submit a 3,000 to 5,000 word written work sample. This is very flexible. It's a document upload, so there's no kind of specific word limit in there. And this gives you the ability to kind of pick your best work, or indeed maybe combine or submit 2 separate works. And depending on where you are in your studies or how long it's been since you were last in higher education, you might have a different preference for what that might look like. So we say that a chapter from your undergraduate dissertation is a really good place to start. But you might think about, if you have 2 really high mark, smaller essays, you can combine them, you can take an excerpt. And what's really useful is to put a little bit of context in there. So just explain what you are submitting in there. That kind of helps frame it for the person who's reviewing the sample. You also, of course, need to provide an academic transcript. This is your kind of evidence of your qualifications thus far. If you've completed that, that will be kind of the end results. So, and that can come in the form of a scan of the kind of certificate and the individual grades, or kind of the electronic version of that, more so these days. If you haven't completed your degree yet, an in-progress transcript can take the place of that, and it kind of shows us where you're heading towards. If we go to the next slide. Another key part will be your academic references. I say academic references, that's really the preference and what I would say typically would be the priority, especially for the MA History of Art, which we will be looking for those. Obviously, if you're applying and you've been out of education for some time, we do appreciate that you might not be able to get 2, or it might be a little bit more difficult. It's always still good to try to get at least 1. But you can also supplement that with a professional reference. And indeed, if it's been quite some time, sometimes you might need to go to two professional references. There's a little bit of guidance here and on the website for what they might want to provide. But it's really useful for them to give us a bit of a sense of who you are as a candidate, some of those transferable skills coming into the program. And that would be really useful to kind of think about how you can provide that with those two referees. Next slide. And the application form obviously requires some kind of typical information as well, and some kind of supplementary documents. So we ask for a kind of your passport, a photo that will later become your ID, student ID photo, a CV, which is really good for us to kind of see your trajectory and any kind of work experience, especially because the personal statement is kind of short in terms of trying to fit everything in. So the CV allows you to kind of focus on the best parts of that, but the CV can kind of cover the other aspects there. If you're needing to provide us with English language proof, then that's the opportunity to provide that too. We look at the IELTS. Most typically, we require a 7 overall with no less than a 6.5 in the reading and writing categories for IELTS. And indeed, if you've studied in the UK before, your previous visa, just so we know kind of what your background is there, we can kind of help with the next one. You go to the next slide. So that's the application process and kind of some of the key dates, etc. Now to funding and kind of scholarships. We've already mentioned earlier the alumni discount of 10%, but these are some other things that are useful to know. So we have our own Courtauld scholarship, MA Courtauld scholarship process, where we will be offering a limited number, so around 10 or so scholarships of around 15 or just over 15K. The criteria for that are mostly based around what we would consider kind of priority areas of widened participation, and the eligibility criteria are from the website at the moment. The form is not, that will be out in the coming weeks. If you're a UK student, or always good to check if you've been in the UK for a few years and your eligibility, you can also get a UK government loan. And indeed, we're able to help with other loans. So the US kind of federal loans, we can also help secure for you. Just to note that some of these options don't apply to the graduate diploma if you're also considering applying for that. There are other forms of help and support as well, from disability allowance through to the hardship fund here, where we are able to cover kind of emergency situations, just help out where needs be. On to the next slide, which is accommodation. So we have our own halls of residence, which is really close to our Somerset House campus, right on Waterloo Bridge, essentially, which is Duchy House. We have a number of rooms there which have a range of affordability, from kind of shared bathrooms through to slightly more spacious en suites. We also have a number of rooms in the University of London intercollegiate halls, which are mostly based in Bloomsbury. The difference there would be that you will be sharing the space with students from all over London, different universities within the University of London. So great opportunity to meet people who are studying completely different areas, share a room with a radiographer or a doctor in training. Kind of a good opportunity to branch out there. And we always sort of view these as being particularly relevant for our international students who aren't familiar with London. Of course, many of our home students may have already had some experience of London, or may be able to find other options through the private rental market, etc. So that's kind of the practical things in terms of how to apply, fees and funding, accommodation. That's everything that I have. We'll open it up to questions now. I can't see any myself at the moment, so do put them
Yeah,
in. And
I
I'll
can
pass over
actually.
I'll pass over.
Yeah, I can see questions as well. I think that they're in the Q&A bit of the webinar, because I was
Okay.
looking in the wrong place as well. But perhaps I will get Alex, you to answer some questions, since we're still on the applications section. So there was a question which is, are you automatically considered for scholarships when applying? Can you explain a little bit more about how the scholarship is process works?
Absolutely, yeah. So you're not automatically considered. There'll be an application form that has it kind of mirrors the criteria, the eligibility criteria for the scholarship. So the criteria and kind of guidance, some of that is up there now, so you can get a sense of it. In the next, I would say 2 weeks or so, the actual application form itself will go live. And then the deadline for scholarships will be the 20th of January 2025. So that's kind of gives you a sense of when that will be available. So it's not an automatic thing. You will have to submit an application. We hope it won't be too arduous. And a question we often get sometimes around scholarship applications is, is it linked to or does it have an impact on your program application? And it's an entirely separate process and kind of part of that. So don't worry about that aspect of it.
But the deadline will be the same as of 20th of January. That's the only thing to highlight. There is also a question there was another question about scholarship. Okay. How many applicants are there every year? Like, this is the type of thing that Alex, you might have off the top of your head of how many people apply.
I'll start with the program and then narrow that down to scholarships, perhaps to give you a sense of
Yeah,
all
I
of
think it was more about program, but let's do scholarships as well. Yeah, I think
yeah.
I'd like to know.
So for the program, we might reasonably expect to receive, and it's quite a wide range depending on the number of options that we have available in a year, but something like 450 to 500 applications, I think we would reasonably expect to receive, which gives you a sense of the scale of that. And then for scholarships, for the people who are applying for the MA in particular, there might be 100 people who apply. So it kind of gives you a breakdown of the number of applications that we receive.
Great, thank you so much. And Alex, also for you, when will the application results arrive?
It's a great question. So we would expect most of the decisions to be made in February. So the application deadline is in January. We will release those applications after my team have assessed them just for completeness. Is everything in the application there? It gets released to our members of faculty in the week or so after that. And then the decisions really happen throughout that month of February, sometimes early March as well, but certainly we wouldn't expect too many decisions or people not to have heard anything from us into late March. It would certainly be resolved by then.
Yeah, and Alex, do you have an idea of when the deposit deadline is roughly?
So I think the deposit deadline will likely be, and this is a caveat.
Yeah,
We haven't
yeah,
determined that yet, but we
a
normally
month.
ask for that. It will either be at the end of April
Yeah,
or early May, and that there's a reasonably big window there. It will depend on some other factors, but you'll have
yeah.
the upshot of all of that is that you'll have a little bit of time to make those decisions and wait for scholarship decisions and other funding applications that you might have out there. So it's not certainly not an immediate, you have to decide the next day. There's a little bit of time to kind of take stock and wait for other factors to come into play too.
And just to add to that is once you get the decision for your application, if you receive an offer for a particular special option or particular program, there will be an offer holder kind of online virtual meeting with your special option tutor that will be organized sometime in March. Again, you will be contacted, you will receive the offer or the decision from admissions, but then you'll be contacted by your special option tutor who will arrange a time at a time of date, kind of probably around 2 o'clock, that international students can attend as well. And there will be kind of a up to an hour session where you can meet the other students, incoming students, and then sorry, I think my broke up. Where you can meet the other incoming students and also ask questions and get a sense of what to expect. So then there is. I'm going to move on to the next question. Um, if someone applies for both MA History of Art and MA Art and Business, might they receive offers for both, or will the Courtauld take the decision to only make a single offer?
I can take this
Alex?
one. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
the what we think will happen will be that you will be made an offer to, if you were made an offer for 2 programs, you'll receive both of the offers. We'll then ask you to make a decision on those. So, as part of accepting a place, you have to firmly accept and pay a deposit, and that will be towards one of those. You couldn't have both of them at the same time. We would ask that you pick and kind of make that decision and commit to one of those at that deposit deadline, that kind of firm acceptance deadline point. So, yep, you can, and you may well get 2 offers, but you'll need to narrow that down if you do so.
Mhm. Yeah, that's that's what I would have said as well. I'm glad we're on the same page. I have a question, which is, since I'll be applying from Switzerland, I wanted to ask if it's possible for academic references to be provided in German. And the answer to that, I think that it has to be in English.
That's right. Yeah, we do ask that you ask referees to provide that in English. You can't necessarily bank on the fact that the person who is reviewing things that you submit, or the referees, can read the language. In some cases, they might be able to, but we really, yeah, do ask all the documentation you provide is in English or translated into English, and that's particularly relevant for transcripts in many cases as well. So that's one additional step you may have to take if you're applying from a non-English speaking country.
Right, thank you so much. There is a question about how much is the deposit. Do we know yet?
I For this year, it's not fully committed yet, so I wouldn't want
But maybe you can say what it was for last year if we knew for
Yeah,
that
so
to
for
give them an
last year,
idea.
it was 500 for a home student and 1,000 for an overseas student. But that is subject to change, so that might increase. The deposit, though, it's not an additional charge. It's a portion of the tuition fees, so it's not additional money. It's a deposit towards the tuition fees that you pay later on. So
Mhm.
it's really more about commitment to the accepting the offer.
Great, thank you so much, Alex. So there is a question also maybe for you, Alex. How many of the incoming students are international students?
So for the history of art MA, it's broadly about 50-50, sometimes sort of 60-40, the 40 being international. It kind of varies between those. There's also sometimes quite a bit of variation between different options. So I think, it might be lazy to assume this, but it can be the case that the options that have a more international focus can sometimes have a more international cohort. That's probably fair to say in many cases.
Yeah, I think so. That's certainly the case for my cohort this year. I probably have like a third of each from the group of 12. So there is another question which is about accommodation. And it is, if you are not an international student but you live outside of London, how likely is it for you to be considered for Courtauld student accommodation?
There's always, you should absolutely still apply. I think the priority kind of way of looking at it is, do you live or have you studied in the UK before? That's kind of the priority point number one. And then next is how far are you from London if you are not not close by already. So it's sort of the second kind of point that we would look down. So absolutely do still apply. It's hard to give an idea of it because it really depends on how many people apply and where they're based. But certainly there are people who are home students who are based, a little more distance away from London, who are in accommodation this year. So it's certainly possible.
Okay, thank you. I have another question, which is if I took a year of study abroad, do you require the transcript from my host institution, or is it just the one from my home university? Okay.
I think just the one from the home institution in most cases. And sometimes it'll be integrated or sometimes it will be kind of abbreviated. But I think really it's going to be the main body of your study that will be interesting to us. But you also have the ability to apply to submit both of those. You don't need to limit it. You should have the chance to upload multiple documents to cover that. So by all means, if it might be that there's something in there that you really want us to see. So yeah, I wouldn't overthink it, but you can submit both.
Okay. And then I have a question also for you. Approximately how many students without an art history background are typically accepted to the MA History of Art program?
It's a really good question. I think I don't have a kind of exact figure off the top of my head. I would estimate that it must be around a third, if not more in some cases. But I think it probably also depends, and this is where with the granularity of the options, I think it probably varies, where some options you may get people who come from a literature or history background more so than others. So I think it probably varies quite a lot from option to option
Yeah.
in some cases, where some are more kind of overtly art historical and others are a bit more broad. And certainly we also have the graduate diploma people who come onto the program too, who are coming from completely different disciplines, in many cases, people who have studied or had a career in law coming into the MA with that year of the graduate diploma. So it can vary option to option across the board as well. I think there is a good proportion of people who don't have that background who do come onto the program.
And I would say that many those students who apply for the graduate diploma, they will stay on and do a master's program afterwards. And also to answer that, for example, in my special option this year, I have a student who did fine art, several students who did languages, and a student who did international relations, history. So really, and two students who did graduate diploma as well. So it's a real range, and it really depends. Which is why I think kind of making sure you include your CV and your personal statement is very important.
Absolutely.
I think there was a question that Shika, you said that you wanted to answer. But I can't.
No, I must have
if I
accidentally
already
clicked it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
If I already have a postgraduate degree, am I still eligible to apply to this MA program? I think the answer is yes.
Yes.
Right, Alex?
Yes.
Yes. Please,
Yes.
of course, apply. We'd love to
Yes.
see your application. And that is also quite common. Okay. Next question. Please, can you give a rough idea of in-person attendance each week, tutorials, lectures, etc.? I do actually know this because we had this question already. And I think it's 8 contact hours per week at least. So you will have 4 2 2-hour seminars with the special option. Then there will be the kind of co-taught modules in critical debates, but also the dissertation module. And there will be other events that are organized, such as trips that sometimes take place in the same week. The other thing that I haven't said yet, and I'd like to flag, is that there is often a study trip which is organized together with a special option, and that can take place either in semester 1 or semester 2. And students take a trip together with a special option tutor, so in your special option group, to either somewhere abroad or somewhere locally in UK. And it's generally an overnight trip where it's 1 or 2 overnight trips. So it's normally 3 to 4 days. And there is a study grant attached that you receive from the Courtauld to cover the expenses for that trip. And this year, it's £400 that you will receive to take a trip and I know that recently students have gone to Venice, for example, with several special options. Some have been to Vienna. I'm taking my students to Tbilisi in Georgia, which I'm very excited about, but in April. So that's that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. What proportion of the MA History of Art cohort has an art history background, BA? Well, I guess this is kind of a statistics, but I think we kind of answered that already, but I don't know whether there is anything we need to add to that.
I think we covered that.
Yeah, I think so too. Could you tell us more about the 2 modules that complement the special option? So that's the critical debates and the exhibition module, as well as the third one is the dissertation module. So the critical debates one, it's kind of looks at particular, I guess, methods, theories, concepts, or issues in art history which are relevant now. And the special options are grouped around those issues. So, for example, with my special option, we are part of the migrations group, and that can be looking at the migration of ideas, at kind of questions of transnational exchange, but also at migration of people and artwork. So it's thinking about diasporas, it's thinking about biennales. It's kind of also a political debate, which is around the current is in the middle of what, and it's about kind of not only about Middle Ages, but it's also kind of things methodologically and critically about key issues that are led. So you will meet once a week together with a kind of, as I said, 4 or 5, I think, special option cohorts. There will be discussion groups, there will be visits to galleries or museums, as well as lectures, but it is also about discussion, which I think is one of the most important things. So I hope that has answered your question, but there will be more information on the website as well about those modules. Okay, would you recommend, next question, because unfortunately I'll only be able to stay for 5 more minutes and then I'll have to go. Would you recommend that the chosen special option aligns with your dissertation topic? I can answer that quickly. So you, in terms of your MA dissertation topic, you really will choose your dissertation topic once you start this special option. And I would say, like, it's often some students come to the special option or to the MA thinking they want to write a particular MA dissertation. But there's also an element of flexibility where through the year of the top program, you might be exposed to new information, new ideas, new archives, new methodologies. So I say that, yeah, I would say that you probably want to apply for something that you want to to study and write on, because you most likely will write your dissertation with the special option tutor as your supervisor. Okay, could you tell us more? Okay, I've answered that. Okay, I several questions in one. I have the following questions. Do you entertain applications by mature students? Yes. What importance do you place on future career plans versus background and past degree? I think you've got to say in your personal statement, I guess, address both things, but it's really what experience and skills you have already as well that will give us an idea also why you're wanting to do this. How many applicants roughly? We've answered that. Is selection driven by interest in special option or what students bring to it? I'd say both of those things, or more background and past degree. And lastly, does the special option with the art and socialism angle also include art of GDR? Yeah, we also include the art of GDR, and I often have students writing on that topic. I hope I've answered that, and if I haven't, you can email me directly. Then a question of, I think we answered that. I'm just going to remove, I'm coming from a non-art background. Could you please share what aspects you mainly consider when evaluating applicants? I have taken some quarter short courses. Would these experiences help the application? Do you have further advice on how to strengthen my application? I think, yes, definitely talk about the short courses, talk about what you've read, what your interests are, what particular subject area you're interested in, and you could talk about your previous experience as well, and that will be included in the in your personal statement and CV. So if there's anything else, Alex, do jump in. What specific details or key points should we include in the specialized personal statements? The specialized personal statements should refer to the special option that you're selecting. And if you're going to apply for the general art history options, you can either apply for one special option or the general art history, where you'll be considered for, like, you'll be put into the general pool of applications. In that specialized personal statement, please state what options you might be interested in. Say, like, I'm interested in the art of, let's say, medieval Europe, or I'm interested in looking at art from Asia's, kind of more broadly, from kind of what continent you're interested in. Or you could even list some special options and say that I'm interested in these three. And when you write the specialized option for your the single one that you've selected, I also think that please, because though some options could be oversubscribed and you might be considered for others, it's always good to say that this is the one that I definitely want to do, but I might also be would like to be considered for some others. Okay, so I think that's kind of all that I have time for. Let me just quickly read these to make sure if there is anything essential. With the special options, and I recall you saying the critical debates module coming with other MA programs, how much contact is there with other history of art MA students? It's through these group talk programs and all the other activities that you get to do at the Courtauld, in the research forum, the student union, and so on. Would you recommend that your special option choice aligns with your dissertation topic? I've done that. What percentage of students join the program after time out of education? I think we've discussed that as well. When will the application results? Yes, we've discussed that. Are the two special options essays often in service or related to the dissertation, or are they separate? It's up to you. They can be two separate essays. Are the two special option essays often related to the dissertation? They can be on separate topics. In fact, they should be on separate topics. Only one of your special option essays can lead towards your dissertation. That's the question there. Would you recommend reaching out to professors in the special options we're interested in prior to applying? You could, if you have a very specific question, but I would say that a lot of information on the website about that particular special option. But if you have a particular question, you could always do that. It just might take a little bit of time for them to get back to you, or you can email me as head of program. Are there opportunities to work experience within or alongside the course? Some students do work part-time, and it is an intense program, so you have to be very flexible with that. In terms of work experience, as I said, there is like an opportunity to do gallery talks. There is an opportunity to apply to be kind of a student ambassador and also work within as a student assistant at the research forum. And those are opportunities, I think, that are within the coursehold and for the history of art students. But many of my students do work experience and internships. Is the application process identical to the Courtauld BA3 students? Do they require references, transcripts? So I think that was the last question. And Alex, do you want to answer that about the BA3?
Yeah, so we absolutely. So it is identical. It's the same form, and we do require those same things. You'll need to just get in touch with the program admin team to ask for kind of an in-progress transcript that you can upload to the application form, and they should be able to do that and provide that element of it. And yeah, references from most likely from people within the Courtauld, etc. But yeah, it's an identical.
Yeah.
It's not a separate form. Yeah.
The last question I'm going to read, which is there a foreign language component of the MA? There isn't one that is part of the MA. It's not part of our talk program, but some students do take language courses in London, whether it's, for example, School of Slavonic East European Studies at KCL, but it's not part of their program. It's something that you do alongside it. So this is all that we have time for. Please email us if you have some questions. There is information of how to stay in touch. And yes, I think we will be having another virtual open day in January. So please also keep your eyes out for more information from us. And thank you so much for attending. We really look forward to reading your applications. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.